Makingascene.org brings you why monitoring is the most important part of your home studio and the most ignored. Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are diving into a problem that, I swear, every single person with a home studio has felt. You know the one. You work for hours, you get a mix sounding absolutely amazing, and then the second you play it anywhere else, it just completely self-destructs. So yeah, let's get into this all too common creative heartbreak.
So, let's start with a scene that I'm willing to bet is gonna sound painfully familiar. We're talking about that moment you realize the mix you poured your heart into, well, it was basically a lie. A lie told to you by your very own room.
Oh man, we have all been there. It is super late, you're exhausted, but you are also on top of the world, right? The vocal is sitting perfectly, the drums have that perfect punch, that chorus just lifts off, you're doing that little head nod at the desk thinking, yes, I finally cracked it. It sounds incredible.
And then, the next morning, the moment of truth, the dreaded car test. All of a sudden, the bass is either totally missing or it's a muddy, booming mess. The vocals? Buried. The cymbals sound like they're stabbing you in the ear. It is a complete disaster, and you're just sitting there, completely deflated, asking yourself, which one of these is even real?
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because our first instinct is to blame the gear, right? We think, oh, I just need that new shiny plug-in, or maybe I need a better microphone, or we just throw our hands up and hope mastering will somehow fix it. But as makingascene.org points out, those are just the usual suspects. The real culprit almost every single time is your monitoring, your speakers working against your room.
And that right there, that is the heart of the issue. See, mixing isn't magic, it's just a long series of decisions. But if the sound you're hearing, the information you're getting, is flawed from the very start, then every single decision you make is built on a lie. You're trying to fix problems that aren't really there, and you're missing the ones that are. You just can't make honest choices.
Okay, so if the problem is a dishonest mix, the goal isn't just to make it sound better in your room. The real goal is to make it translate. So let's talk about what that word actually means in the real world. Translation does not mean your mix sounds exactly the same everywhere. That's literally impossible. What it means is that the balance holds up. The relationships between the instruments stay solid. So if the vocal feels right in your studio, it still feels right on a pair of cheap earbuds. If that kick and bass are locked in on your monitors, they still feel tight and controlled in the car. The emotional core of the song, that stays intact no matter where you listen.
And this is a huge point, because this goes so far beyond just a simple tech fix. You know, for an indie artist, your finished songs, your masters, they're your assets. A catalog of music that translates well, that sounds great everywhere, that holds its value, it protects your hard work, and it builds your career. So thinking about your monitoring isn't a luxury upgrade, it's a foundational part of building a real, sustainable career in music.
Okay, so we need a system we can trust. That's clear. But to build one, we have to really get our heads around why our rooms and our speakers are so good at fooling us in the first place.
Man, this is such a critical idea. When you're in the zone, turning knobs on an EQ, you hear a change, and your brain goes, okay, cool, I'm doing something. This is productive. But if your room is hyping up a certain frequency, you might be cutting something that your mix desperately needs. You're just reacting to flawed information, stacking one bad decision on top of another.
Your average home studio, a smallish, rectangular room with hard walls, it's an acoustic nightmare. Long bass waves get trapped and build up in the corners, making it sound super boomy. At the same time, they can cancel each other out in other spots, making certain notes just vanish. Then you've got sound bouncing off your desk and your walls, which smears the all-important mid-range, where your vocals and guitars live, and it makes your stereo image feel all wobbly and undefined.
But wait, I can hear you asking, can I just mix on headphones and avoid all this room nonsense? It's a fair question. And look, headphones are an incredible tool. They're amazing for catching tiny little details, like clicks and pops and bad edits. But they just can't tell you how bass is going to feel in a physical space, or what your stereo image will really sound like coming out of speakers. To get a mix that translates, you have got to use monitors. It's really that simple.
All right, so we've diagnosed the problem pretty thoroughly. And the good news is, you don't need $1 million professionally designed studio to fix this. You just need to start thinking differently. You need to turn your mixing space into an honest-to-goodness listening space.
So what on earth does that mean? Well, it means you have to get out of the bubble of listening to your own unfinished music 24/7. The single most powerful, game-changing habit you can build is to just listen. Intentionally listen to professionally mixed, finished records through your speakers sitting in your mix chair.
I want you to think of this as your new morning ritual. Before you even touch one of your own tracks, you calibrate your ears with a pro mix. You get a feel for what right sounds like in your room. And then when you're hours into a mix and you feel completely lost, that reference track is your anchor. It pulls you back to reality. It's the simplest, most effective way to keep your decisions honest from beginning to end.
Okay, now that we know how to listen, let's talk about the gear. This last part is all about putting together a physical system that gives you that clear, truthful information you need to make those great decisions we've been talking about.
Look, there are so many great, affordable options out there now. Brands like Focal, PreSonus, Fostix, they're all staples in home studios for a reason. But here's the absolute key takeaway from makingascene.org. The brand name printed on the speaker is way less important than the relationship you build with it. You can make absolutely killer mixes on budget monitors if you take the time to learn them inside and out using those reference tracks.
Now, a simple hardware graphic EQ between your interface and your speakers can be a really powerful tool for taming some of those obvious room problems. But you have to be careful with it. The approach is everything. You're using reference tracks to make small, subtle cuts, not big boosts. You're trying to get a natural or even boring sound. The whole point is correction, not excitement. Hype is the enemy of translation.
And finally, acoustic treatment. I know, it sounds intimidating and expensive, but you don't need to turn your room into a padded cell. The goal isn't to make the room dead, it's just clarity. A few simple panels on the walls to catch those first reflections, maybe some bass traps in the corners, it can make a night and day difference. It just helps you hear more of your speakers and less of your room's problems.
And really, that's what this all boils down to. If your mixes aren't working out there in the real world, the solution isn't some magic plugin you can buy. The answer is to stop guessing and to start, piece by piece, building a system that tells you the truth. So I'll leave you with this. What is one simple thing you can do this week to make your monitoring just a little more honest? Make sure you check out the other great articles and resources on makingascene.org, the place the indie artist goes to build a new music industry.